Across our planet, people have built homes where life was never meant to survive. Towns where the only escape is weaving through colossal icebergs. Villages clinging to volcanoes that could erupt at any moment. And temples balanced on mountaintops halfway between heaven and earth. Yet people not only survive in these places, they call them home. Again and again, humans have chosen to live on the edge of oblivion. And nowhere is that clearer than in China's high mountains, where we come across something that's hard to believe is real. Rising from the mists of Guizhou province, Mount Fanjing is crowned by temples that seem to balance on nothing but air. Two Buddhist temples sit impossibly perched on separate peaks of a needle-thin rock spire at over 2,500 meters altitude. They are connected only by a bridge that spans the gap between heaven and earth. Built over 500 years ago, the temples were anchored directly into the living rock itself. For centuries, monks have lived and worshipped in these sky-high sanctuaries, hauling supplies up over 8,000 stone steps, chiseled by hand into the near vertical mountainside. Pilgrims ascend through clouds to reach temples where the air grows thin, and every breath becomes a prayer. The mountain is so sacred and so treacherous that reaching the top remains an act of faith as much as endurance. But others found their sanctuary not by reaching up, but by digging down. In Kubapeti, the sun doesn't just rise, it punishes. 50 degrees Celsius, day after relentless day. So, nearly everyone lives carved into solid rock. Homes, shops, pubs, even the church, all hidden in cool, eternal darkness beneath the surface. Ventilation shafts drilled through sandstone keep the underground air breathable, turning abandoned mine tunnels into neighborhoods. It started as survival, but became a whole underground town. But solid ground can be deceptive. In Iceland, the fishing town of Grindavik sits in the shadow of an active volcano, where residents often watch the molten rock illuminating the horizon like a fiery reminder of their precarious existence. But that's not all. The town is also an earthquake hotspot, receiving on average 25,000 earthquakes per year. The earth beneath them is utterly unpredictable. But that shouldn't come as a surprise. They built their homes on solidified lava fields where molten rock once flowed freely. Residents live constantly on edge, knowing that at any moment rivers of molten lava could come pouring into their streets with nothing they can do to stop it. When the volcano decides to unleash its fury, entire neighbourhoods must evacuate as the unstoppable flow consumes everything in its path. Adding to their concerns is the nearby Svartsengi geothermal power plant, which sits directly in the volcano's potential path of destruction. It's scary to even imagine the damage that could be done if the power plant got hit by flowing lava. This is life on the edge of creation itself. Meanwhile, in China, the problem isn't unstable ground. It's having barely any ground at all. Squeezed between towering mountain walls, the Chinese city of Yanjin exists in a valley so narrow that it's only 30 meters wide at some points. Over 400,000 people live crammed into this natural corridor, held up by terraced retaining walls and step foundations that keep entire neighborhoods from sliding into the river below. Buildings climb the mountainsides because there's nowhere else to go, creating what might be the world's thinnest metropolis, stretching for kilometers along the valley floor. Halfway around the world, another community has also mastered the art of living on the edge. Perched on the edge of a 50-metre basalt cliff, the Spanish town of Castellfolli de la Roca is literally only 2 houses wide at its narrowest point. The entire medieval settlement balances on a razor-thin ridge of volcanic rock, with buildings squeezed so tightly together that neighbours can shake hands across the street. From below, the town appears carved directly from the cliff itself, which isn't far from the truth. Houses were built using the very basalt they stand on, with stone cut from the rock face and stacked back into place. Every step toward the town centre brings you closer to the precipice, where medieval walls serve a dual purpose: defence from enemies and prevention from tumbling into the abyss below. But some places make cliff edges look welcoming, like towns where dying is literally illegal. In Svalbard's Longyearbyen, bodies don't decompose in the permafrost. They remain perfectly preserved indefinitely. So death is literally illegal here. When people become seriously ill, they must travel to mainland Norway. Not for treatment, but to ensure they don't die in a place where the earth refuses to reclaim them. Life operates by different rules when you're closer to the North Pole than to Norway. Here everyone carries rifles, not for crime, but for polar bears. The sun vanishes for months, plunging the town into endless Arctic night. Then it returns for months of midnight sun, where 3 a.m. looks identical to 3 p.m. Buried in Arctic ice, this town hides humanity's last insurance policy, the global seed vault. Inside, over 1 million seeds are locked behind blast-proof doors, kept frozen for centuries. Wheat, rice, corn, and crops from every corner of the earth. If disaster strikes and fields go barren, these seeds are kept to bring our food supply back to life. Then there are places that make even long-year Bayern's rules seem reasonable. Carved into a sheer cliff, 2,580 metres high, Abuna Yamata-gu demands one of the world's most dangerous pilgrimages. To worship here, families climb barefoot up vertical rock faces, gripping handholds carved 1,500 years ago. The path narrows to ledges where a single misstep could mean death, yet this climb is still made every Sunday. Inside, the cliff glows with ancient frescoes painted by monks who once hauled pigments up the same deadly route. Off the coast of England, the sea offers its own version of precarious living. Rising from the North Sea, the rocky island of Lindisfarne has been home to monks, fishermen, and hardy residents for over 1,300 years. This windswept outcrop, crowned with ancient ruins and a small village, seems like just another remote coastal settlement clinging to the edge of England. But that's not even the impossible part. Twice a day, the entire island disappears from the world. Connected to mainland England by a causeway that vanishes at high tide, Lindisfarne becomes unreachable for hours. Miss the timing, and you're either trapped on the island or stranded on the mainland. Despite warning signs posting tide schedules, every year someone misjudges the sea's patience and watches their car get swallowed by rising water. Yet some disappearances are far more mysterious than tides. In Guatemala's rainforest, the Maya city of Tikal tells a story of ambition swallowed by time. Giant limestone pyramids thrust above the jungle canopy like ancient skyscrapers, their peaks still reaching toward gods that no longer listen. At its height, tens of thousands of people thrived here, a metropolitan centre where modern cities now struggle to survive. They built roads, palaces, and observatories that track celestial movements with impossible precision. Then, sometime around 900 AD, they simply left. The jungle swallowed it whole, vines over temples, roots splitting foundations, trees growing through stone floors. For centuries, Tikal was only legend, until explorers hacked through the green to find a city erased by nature. Yet in the Amazon, 500,000 people chose to stay and fight with Mother Nature. Iquitos sits in the middle of the Amazon like an impossible dream. 500,000 people in a city with no road connection for 400 kilometres in any direction. To reach civilization, you fly over endless green carpet or navigate rivers that snake through rainforest for days. Pink river dolphins surface in these same murky waters. Anacondas hunt in swamps just blocks from downtown. Caimans glide silently past floating markets. In Iquitos, you're never more than a few blocks from something that could kill you, and never more than a boat ride from the most biodiverse place on the planet. Clinging to Turkey's Black Sea cliffs, Sumela Monastery seems to float in mid-air. Built into a vertical rock face 1,200 metres above the valley floor, this Byzantine monastery has clung to the cliffside for over 1,600 years. The complex was carved directly into natural caves and ledges, with frescoed halls and chambers built into the rock itself. When monks first began carving these impossible chambers, people were still writing on parchment with quill pens. The printing press wouldn't be invented for another 1,000 years. But some people found a more unique solution. On Lake Titicaca, Peru, at over 3,800 meters above sea level, the Uros people have built floating islands from totora reeds that grow in the shallows. These living islands, rebuilt constantly as the reeds decay, represent perhaps humanity's most elegant solution to the problem of territory. When you can't own the land, make your own. So unique, are these reed homes that they've become one of South America's most sought-after tourist destinations, with visitors travelling from around the world to witness islands that literally float. Yet others found freedom not in making their own land, but in having none at all. On the Mongolian steppes, emptiness becomes a way of life. Here you can ride for days and see nothing but grass and sky. No roads, no neighbours, just emptiness that makes you feel both tiny and completely free. Their homes move with the seasons. A single yurt, everything a family needs to survive, can be dismantled in under an hour, loaded onto camels or the back of a weathered truck, and rebuilt miles away before sunset. Home isn't a place here. It's wherever you choose to stop moving. But this way of life is fading. Winters are harsher, droughts more severe, and many nomads are abandoning the steppe for crowded settlements on the edge of Ulaanbaatar. Even so, nearly a third of Mongolians still live this way, enduring minus 40 degrees Celsius winters in tents that move with the seasons, holding on to freedom even as it slips away. But what if home meant returning to the place that keeps trying to kill you? On the slopes of Mount Merapi, Indonesia, villages exist directly in the path of lava flows that have destroyed them repeatedly throughout history. Families rebuild their homes in the exact same spots after each eruption, drawn back by the fertile volcanic soil that feeds their crops. Even knowing the mountain will eventually reclaim their land again. But on nearby Java, families don't just live with volcanic danger, they descend into it for work. Deep in the mountains of East Java, where volcanic peaks pierce Indonesian skies, lies a crater that glows like a wound in the earth. Kawah Ijen volcano holds a lake so acidic it could dissolve metal, surrounded by cliffs that weep yellow sulfur like ancient tears. At night, the crater burns with electric blue fire, sulfur gas igniting as it hits the air. A volcano that literally glows in the dark. And in this toxic wonderland where the air can kill and the ground burns blue, entire families come to work each day. Miners descend into the crater at dawn, carrying almost nothing for protection, just cloth masks against gases so corrosive they can make lungs bleed. They hack chunks of pure sulfur from the earth with simple tools, loading baskets until they weigh 90 kilos, nearly the weight of a grown man. Then begins the brutal climb out, hauling this crushing weight up paths that would challenge even mountain climbers. They ascend through air that burns their throats with every breath. For this, they earn the equivalent of just a few dollars a day, while tourists gather at the rim to photograph the blue flames. The miners below risk their lives to keep their families fed. This is their office. Their daily commute leads down into hell itself. In Yemen's remote mountains, a village defies gravity itself. Haid al-Jazeel clings to a massive boulder, its stone houses built directly into the ancient rock formation. Built 500 years ago as protection from bandits and tribal raids, this village grows from the mountain itself, with homes carved into crevices and perched on narrow ledges. Yet the true desert masters never needed walls at all. In the world's harshest deserts, where temperatures can kill and water is days away, nomadic families have mastered survival in one of Earth's most hostile environments. They navigate endless dunes with no maps, no GPS, no roads, just memory passed down through generations and stars that have guided their ancestors for millennia. Every grain of sand tells a story if you know how to read it. Camels, the ships of the desert, provide everything needed for survival: meat, milk, shelter, and fuel, while carrying entire civilizations across emptiness that would swallow cities. Temperatures swing from scorching days to freezing nights in hours. Sandstorms turn day to night without warning, and water sources are days apart. One wrong turn can mean death, yet entire families dismantle their camps and move thousands of kilometres across this wasteland every few weeks. But in this next location, being out in the open is not really an option. Every autumn in Churchill, Manitoba, polar bears invade the streets. There are more bears than people here. The simple act of going to work becomes a calculated risk. Locals leave their car doors unlocked to offer refuge. Because when a 1,000-pound predator decides your street looks interesting, your best defense might be someone else's Honda. The town even operates a polar bear jail, a holding facility where repeat offenders are locked up before being relocated away from human neighborhoods. Here, on the edge of Hudson Bay, civilization exists by the grace of creatures that could end it with a swipe of their paws. And the remoteness doesn't end there. Pitcairn Island is one of the world's most remote inhabited places, floating in the South Pacific thousands of miles from anywhere. In 1790, 9 mutineers from the HMS Bounty found this volcanic speck and burned their ship to avoid capture. Today, just 50 people live here, all descendants of those 9 mutineers. A supply boat comes only 4 times a year, and missing one means waiting months for the next. Yet some places make isolation look like paradise. In Ethiopia's Danakil Depression, the village of Hamed Ella exists in what might be the most hostile environment that humans have ever called home. Families live in traditional Afar huts made from woven mats and wooden frames, structures so basic they seem like temporary shelters, yet they've been home to the same families for generations. The village sits on a salt plain where temperatures regularly exceed 50 degrees Celsius, making it one of the hottest permanently inhabited places on Earth. And then there's the hellscape just beyond their doorstep. Neon green acid pools bubble like radioactive warnings. Volcanoes belch toxic gases. And geysers shoot scalding water toward a sky that never cools. Yet people live here, mining salt in 45 degrees Celsius heat, hacking white slabs from the earth with hand tools, while surrounded by landscapes that seem ripped from science fiction. In Austria's peaks, tourists willingly check into what might be the world's most dangerous hotel. Rising above Lake Wolfgang, Schaffberg is reached by a vintage cog railway that's been carrying passengers since 1893. At the summit, a mountain hotel perches on the peak, where guests wake up steps away from a sheer vertical drop that plunges nearly 2,000 metres to the valley floor below. In Austria, they built on top, but in Spain, they built below. In the hills of Andalusia, the Spanish town of Setenil de las Bodegas has solved the problem of architecture in the most unusual way possible, by barely bothering with it at all. Entire neighbourhoods disappear into massive rock overhangs, with houses that extend so deep into the cliff they have no back walls whatsoever. Streets run directly under giant slabs of stone that have loomed overhead for millions of years, turning the town into a living cave system where nature provides the roof and humans simply filled in the gaps. This wasn't built for beauty. It was built for survival against the brutal Spanish sun. While the rest of the country swelters, Sentinel stays naturally cool in the perpetual shade of its ancient stone ceiling, turning millions of tons of crushing rock into the town's greatest asset. But the Arctic presents its own version of living under giants. In Greenland's Ilulissat, residents wake up to the sound of thunder, not from storms, but from icebergs the size of skyscrapers cracking and carving into the sea. This Arctic town sits beneath a fjord, where towering walls of ice loom on the horizon, dwarfing the houses that huddle along the shore. The only way out of this town is to weave between these frozen giants to reach the open ocean. Navigating a maze where one wrong turn could mean being crushed by thousands of years of compressed ice. Each year, over 35 billion tons of ice break away here. This is the same ice fjord that once sent the Titanic's iceberg drifting into the Atlantic. Residents wake up each day to watch the world literally reshaping itself, one thunderous crack at a time. But while Greenland battles isolation, Brazil faces the opposite extreme. Clinging to Rio's hillsides, Rocinha proves that when a city won't make room for you, you make room for yourself. This vertical maze of concrete houses over 100,000 people on slopes so steep that streets become staircases. Built without permission and sustained by pure determination, it's a city within a city that grows upward when it can't grow outward. But some communities prefer a bit more personal space. In the remote valleys of the Indian Himalayas, Spiti Valley exists as one of the world's highest inhabited regions, where entire villages survive at altitudes that leave most visitors gasping for air. To reach this frozen desert, travelers must navigate some of the world's most treacherous mountain roads. Single-lane dirt tracks carved into cliffsides where one wrong turn means a 1,000-meter drop. Cut off from the world for 6 months each year by impassable snow, These communities survive in complete isolation at over 4,000 meters above sea level. Monasteries cling to barren mountainsides that look more like Mars than Earth, while villages huddle against winds that can freeze exposed skin in minutes. With a growing season lasting just a few months, residents must store enough food and fuel to survive half a year of sub-zero conditions. Some cities are built to be seen. In Georgia, a city was built to disappear. From the valley floor, Vadzia looks like nothing more than a blank cliff of weathered stone. But inside is one of history's great secrets. In the 12th century, an entire city was carved by hand into this seemingly solid wall of rock. What appears to be natural stone is actually a honeycomb of over 500 caves, connected by tunnels that wind through 13 hidden churches and royal chambers. "20,000 people once lived within this cliff face. For centuries, armies marched past Vadzia seeing only a blank mountain. The city remained perfectly camouflaged until an earthquake split the mountain wall, exposing the secret and revealing windows, doorways, and staircases carved into the rock face. Today, you can see the gaping holes where the mountain's facade fell away, finally revealing one of the most ambitious architectural projects ever, hidden in plain sight. But Cambodia's lakes present their own vanishing act, one that happens twice a year. In the centre of Cambodia, Tonle Sap Lake transforms with the seasons like a breathing giant. In the dry months, it shrinks to a modest basin. But when the rains come, it swells 6 times larger, swallowing whole landscapes and forcing entire communities to rise alongside it. Houses, schools, even temples balance on stilts or rafts, climbing with the floodwaters. Some rest on stilts nearly 10 meters tall, rebuilt again and again as wood rots in the monsoon heat. Life here is tethered to ropes and wooden beams. Solid ground is only a memory between floods. In Catalonia, the monastery of Montserrat clings to needle-like rock spires that thrust from the earth like a giant serrated blade. From a distance, the mountain looks carved by some cosmic saw, its jagged peaks piercing the sky 1,200 meters above the valley floor. For centuries, pilgrims climb near vertical trails with nothing but faith and fingernails, ascending cliffs that would challenge modern rock climbers. The Benedictine monks who built here weren't seeking comfort. They were seeking isolation so complete that only the truly devoted would make the journey. Legend whispers that the Holy Grail itself was hidden among these impossible spires, adding myth to what was already the most improbable monastery ever conceived. In the snowy mountains of central Japan, the village of Shirakawa-go huddles under thatched roofs designed to shed the heaviest snowfall on Earth. These Gashozukuri houses, with their steep-angled roofs that resemble hands pressed in prayer, can support snow loads that would crush ordinary buildings. Not far away, Mount Ibuki holds the world record for the deepest snow ever measured, 11.8 meters in a single day. Half a world away, desert heat demanded its own architectural solution. In Tunisia's desert town of Matmata, entire families have vanished into the earth itself. Their homes are invisible from above, just mysterious holes in sandstone that lead down to circular courtyards and networks of rooms carved deep underground. Each compound is a secret world of rooms that stay naturally cool year-round. Their cave-like interiors hidden until you peer over the edge into the courtyards. These ancient homes became famous worldwide when filmmakers used them as an alien planet in Star Wars, proving that sometimes Earth's strangest places need no special effects. Meanwhile, in southern China, towering limestone creates a different kind of maze. Surrounded by towering limestone peaks rising from flat farmland, the town of Yangshuo exists in a landscape that seems designed by giants. Families live and farm trapped within a maze of vertical rock towers that isolate them from the outside world. Every journey beyond the valley requires navigating through narrow passages between 200-metre cliffs that could seal shut with a single rockfall. Yet in some places, the Earth's fury becomes background noise to daily life. On Tanna Island in Vanuatu, families wake up to the sound of the Earth exploding. They live at the base of one of the world's most active volcanoes, which erupts dozens of times each day like a cosmic alarm clock that never sleeps. Here, volcanic eruptions aren't disasters. They're Tuesday afternoon. The locals have learned to read the mountain's moods, knowing which explosions mean danger and which just mean the Earth is clearing its throat. Every year, tourists pay thousands to witness what these families consider background noise. Meanwhile, high in the Alps, someone decided a cliff face was the perfect spot for dinner. Built into a sheer cliff face 1,400 metres above the Rhine Valley, the Isha Guest House looks like it was glued to the mountainside as an afterthought. For over 170 years, it served meals to anyone brave enough to climb to what might be the world's most treacherous restaurant. Far above the Arctic Circle, isolation means something completely different. In Norway's Lofoten archipelago, the fishing village of Henningsvær is scattered across dozens of tiny islands, each one playing a vital role in keeping the community alive. Connected by narrow bridges that span Arctic waters, the village spreads its essential services across separate rocks. The school on one island, the church on another, homes clustered on a third. When winter storms rage and waves crash over the connecting bridges, residents must time their daily errands around the sea's moods, turning simple tasks like visiting neighbours into calculated risks across waters that can turn deadly without warning. Ancient desert architects had their own solution to impossible living. In the desert of Yemen, the ancient city of Shibam rises like a mirage made of mud and dreams. Sixteen-story towers built entirely from clay bricks stretch toward the sky, earning it the nickname Manhattan of the Desert. Reinforced with timber beams and mud brick systems, these ancient skyscrapers have withstood 500 years of desert winds and flash floods, standing as monuments to the architectural ambition that has always driven human settlements. But Greece's coastline hides its own architectural deception. From the mainland, Monemvasia looks like nothing more than a seaside village and a giant rock. But sail around the far side, and an entire Byzantine town suddenly appears. Stone houses cascading down cliffs, red-tiled roofs clinging to slopes that plunge into the sea. Its name means single entrance, a city that survived by hiding in plain sight, choosing which side of itself the world was allowed to see. For over 1,000 years, this fortress played the ultimate game of hide and seek. Invisible from land, revealed only to sailors brave enough to approach. But on the mainland, Greece's monks took hiding to even more impossible heights. In Greece, the monasteries of Meteora rise from the earth like stone fingers reaching toward heaven. Massive limestone pillars, worn smooth by millennia of wind and rain, tower 400 meters into the sky. At their peaks, impossibly balanced, sit monasteries that seem to defy both gravity and logic. From below, the monasteries look like castles floating in the clouds, built so high even raiders couldn't reach them. These weren't built for the view. In the 14th century, raiders swept through valleys like wildfire, burning everything in their path. So monks climbed higher than armies could follow, closer to God, farther from danger. For centuries, everything, food, water, building stones, even other monks, was hauled up in rope baskets and nets, one precarious load at a time. One frayed rope meant death. But they built anyway, creating perhaps the most beautiful refuges ever carved from impossibility. The last monk was winched up in a basket in 1950. Today, there are stairs, but the isolation they sought, that remains untouchable. But some miracles appear not on steep mountainsides, but in endless sand. Hidden in Peru's coastal desert, the oasis of Huacachina exists like a liquid jewel surrounded by towering sand dunes. This tiny lagoon, no bigger than a city block, supports palm trees and a small village in one of the driest places on Earth. Visitors come to surf down mountains of sand, but locals know the real miracle is simply that water exists here at all. In Bhutan, Paro Taktsang Monastery clings to a sheer cliff face, looking as if it is growing directly from the rock. Known as Tiger's Nest, reaching it requires stairs carved into the cliff itself. Here, monks live and worship at the edge of the abyss, their morning prayers echoing across the valleys below. Meanwhile, in Argentina's peaks, colonial builders created their own death-defying town. Clinging to the Andean mountainside at 2,780 meters, Iruya cascades down impossible slopes, where cobblestone streets become staircases and houses stack like vertical dominoes. To reach this colonial town, travellers navigate a single winding road carved into cliffsides that drop into misty valleys. Here, every building leans against its neighbour for support in a 400-year-old community hanging on for dear life. From Andean peaks to Atlantic cliffs, some communities just live constantly on the brink. In the Faroe Islands, the tiny village of Gassadalur clings to cliffs above the North Atlantic like a handful of houses thrown against the wind. Fewer than a dozen families live here, perched on the edge of storm-lashed precipices, where a waterfall plunges straight from their backyard into the churning sea below. Until 2004, reaching Gassadalur meant either a treacherous mountain hike through fog and gale-force winds, or a boat journey through seas that regularly devour vessels. The village was so isolated that sheep outnumber people many times over, grazing right to the cliff edges as if the 1,000-foot drop were just another pasture. Here, the margin between home and oblivion is measured in footsteps, and every storm feels like it might be the one that finally claims the village entirely. Yet some coastal communities live above forces far more dangerous than tides. Built on the rim of an active volcanic crater, Santorini's whitewashed villages cling to cliffs that rise directly from the sea. This isn't just picturesque, it's the result of one of history's most catastrophic volcanic eruptions that literally blew apart the island 3,600 years ago. The last major eruption in 1950 reminded residents that the sleeping giant beneath their feet still stirs occasionally. Every sunset photo taken here is actually a view into the mouth of a volcano that could awaken at any time. Meanwhile, Indonesia's remote mountains hide villages that time forgot entirely. Hidden in the volcanic mountains of Flores Island, Wairebo village exists under 7 enormous cone-shaped houses that rise 15 meters high, built entirely from bamboo and palm fiber without a single nail. The village is so remote that reaching it requires a 3-hour trek through dense forest, preserving a way of life that's remained unchanged for centuries. Fewer than 200 people live here, completely cut off from roads or electricity grids, where the outside world only arrives on foot. But these final places tell a different story. Not every impossible place succeeds. Some slowly surrender to the forces they once defied. In Italy, Civita di Bagnoregio earns its nickname as the Dying City, one landslide at a time. Built on crumbling volcanic cliffs that are slowly eroding into the valley below, this medieval hilltop town is literally vanishing piece by piece. What once housed thousands of residents now shelters fewer than a dozen souls who refuse to abandon their disappearing home. The town is accessible only by a long pedestrian bridge that spans the widening canyon, a lifeline stretched across the gap between past and oblivion. Every winter storm, every earthquake, every passing year claims another chunk of the cliff. Yet the remaining residents stay, watching their world shrink around them. Civita di Bagnoregio is dying so slowly that its death has become a form of living, a town in permanent farewell that somehow makes each day more precious. But some collapses happen not over centuries, but in mere decades. In eastern Turkey, the ruins of Ani rise from empty steppe like broken teeth. Once this was a medieval capital larger than London, home to 100,000 souls, and known as the City of 1001 Churches. Merchants travelled continents to reach its markets. Kings sent ambassadors to its courts. This was the beating heart of an Armenian kingdom that seemed destined to last forever. Then earthquakes cracked its foundations, invasions scattered its people. Trade routes shifted, leaving Ani isolated on the edge of nowhere. Today, it's a ghost city, crumbling on the Turkish-Armenian border, its 1,000 churches reduced to hollow shells that echo only with wind. What was once among the world's greatest cities is now a lesson in how civilizations can vanish. Yet in America's canyons, abandonment came even more suddenly and more mysteriously. In Colorado's Mesa Verde, the ancestral Puebloans tucked entire communities under canyon cliffs, creating stone cities that seemed to grow from the rock itself. More than 600 cliff dwellings still survive here, some sprawling into 200-room complexes hidden in the canyon walls. For generations, thousands of people lived here, climbing ladders up sheer walls daily, carrying water and food to homes that existed in permanent twilight. Then, suddenly, in the 13th century, they vanished. Drought and resource collapse drove them from cliff cities they'd spent centuries perfecting. Mesa Verde became a stone ghost town, hidden in shadow for 700 years until explorers rediscovered what might be America's most hauntingly beautiful ruins. But China holds an even deeper mystery: cliff dwellers whose very identity has been erased. In Gansu province, over 100 cave homes stack vertically up cliff sides like stone honeycombs, some with multiple rooms and windows cut with impossible precision. Entire families once lived in these dwellings, connected by paths carved into sheer rock. Yet historians still don't know who built the Guyaju caves, a lost people who chose to live hidden in stone, then vanish so completely that even their name is forgotten. Yet the ultimate impossible home required abandoning the surface world completely. In Turkey's Cappadocia, the underground city of Derinkuyu plunges 85 meters into volcanic rock like a human ant colony. This complete metropolis once sheltered 20,000 people in tunnels and chambers deeper than a 20-story building. Entire communities lived here for months, hidden from the world above. They had stables, kitchens, schools where children learned by lamplight, and rolling stone doors that could seal off sections from invaders. A web of vertical shafts carved straight through the rock kept air flowing to the very lowest chambers, an ancient underground ventilation system that made survival possible. This was humanity's ultimate hiding place, a city so concealed that armies could march overhead while thousands lived in the darkness below. But some cities die not from nature itself, but from a single moment of human error. Pripyat stands frozen at the moment the world changed. Built for 50,000 people to serve the Chernobyl nuclear plant, this modern Soviet city was destroyed, not by bombs or nature, but by something far more insidious: radiation that turned air itself into poison. The 1986 disaster left behind a ghost city where time stopped mid-sentence. The amusement park's Ferris wheel still stands ready for a grand opening that never came. School books lie open on desks, their pages fluttering in winds that no child will ever feel again. Yet in this land that humans abandoned, something extraordinary happened. Nature moved back in. Foxes now prowl streets where buses once ran. Wild boar root through apartment buildings. Even horses have returned to roam landscapes they hadn't seen for centuries. The exclusion zone, created to protect people from radiation, accidentally became one of Europe's most successful wildlife preserves. And hidden among the ruins, a handful of self-settlers live illegally in the zone, elderly residents who slip back to die in the homes they refuse to abandon. Here, in the shadow of humanity's greatest technological failure, life finds a way to continue, just not the life anyone expected. Not too far away, in Russia's mountains, another kind of ending played out. Perched on a rocky plateau 1,500 meters high in Russia's Caucasus Mountains, the ancient village of Gamsutl once housed 300 families who carved their homes directly into the cliff top. Known as the Machu Picchu of Dagestan, this stone settlement survived for over 2,000 years by being completely unreachable. No roads, just treacherous mountain paths that took hours to climb. The last resident died in 2015, ending millennia of human habitation in a place so remote that supplies had to be carried on foot up near vertical trails. Leaving behind a ghost village where stone houses still cling to edges that drop into mountain valleys far below. Meanwhile, in Africa's oldest desert, another kind of ghost town slowly surrenders to the sand. In the Namib Desert, the ghost town of Kolmanskop stands half buried in the same sand that once made it rich. Built during the diamond rush of the early 1900s, this thriving German colonial town had a hospital, ballroom, and even an ice factory in one of the world's driest deserts. For decades, Kolmanskop rivaled European cities, all sustained by diamonds scattered across the desert floor. But when the diamonds ran out in the 1950s, so did the people. The desert began its patient work of reclamation, filling elegant homes with sand grain by grain. Today, dunes pour through shattered windows, burying grand pianos and bathtubs in rooms where sand has risen to the ceiling. Kolmanskop became a monument to the simple reality that some places will always belong to the desert, no matter how much wealth you pour into fighting it. But no story of impossible places would be complete without the one that shows us how quickly it can all end. In 79 AD, the thriving Roman city of Pompeii learned that sometimes the most dangerous neighbour is the one that's been quiet the longest. Mount Vesuvius had slumbered peacefully for so long that residents forgot it was a volcano at all. Then, in just a few hours, pyroclastic flows bury the entire city under ash, freezing 2,000 years of human civilization in volcanic glass. Pompeii is frozen in time. Bread still in ovens, frescoes still on walls, even bodies preserved in their final moments. An entire city erased in hours, then rediscovered centuries later. Pompeii reminds us that all our impossible places, whether carved into cliffs, built under ice, or hidden in deserts, exist at the mercy of forces far greater than human determination. But it also shows us something beautiful, that even when civilizations vanish, the places where people chose to make their impossible homes endure. They become monuments to the most remarkable thing about our species, that no matter how hostile, how dangerous, or how unlikely a place might seem, humans will always find a way to call it home. And if you thought some of the places shown in this video were extreme, wait until you see Madagascar. An island where trees look like they were designed by aliens, landscapes split apart like another planet, and people that have thrived in places that don't even look real. Click here to discover the world's strangest island.